back to Imperium Romanum. Let's try to slur our speech a little more. No, I haven't been drinking. It's my pipe in my mouth and my drool coming down my nose. Okay, so this is the second scenario, second real scenario in the game, which is the Great Mithridatic War. And here you're going to get to see the glory of Pompeii. And yeah, I want to call him Pompeii, I'm sorry. Starts in 75 BC in June, which is an economic mobilization phase, which means we have a mobilization to begin things right off the bat. Good reason not to start with this scenario, because honestly, you know, you have to kind of balance your checkbook on it and figure out where you're going to need the troops and everything in a way that maybe you wouldn't be as comfortable with. Now, I wouldn't suggest starting with Marius and Sulla either. I would suggest starting with one of the introductory scenarios, just to get an idea of how movement and combat all works and everything, and how you're going to compete in there. Of course, these are a little weird, actually. Yeah, let's try to avoid this. So, Gallic Revolt is going to have you in Gaul, where, quite simply, you don't have the easy supply that you have in the Mediterranean. And I think the Dacian one, Conquest of Dacia, is similar. Dacia is Aegea and Sarmatia. That's going to put you, you know, back. I don't know where Sarmatia is. Oh, up there. Again, not in the best of places to be trying to move big Roman armies. But these are smaller scenarios, so they're not that big a deal. Okay. So what do we have here? Sulla dies, bad things happen. The king of Bithynia, the Bithynian bequest from Republic of Rome. And you know, I was actually thinking maybe start with a late scenario of Republic of Rome for this. But I've got a game that actually covers the empire in a way that might be able to interface with this. And I bet you I mentioned it when I was playing that, which is History of the Roman Empire. Very, very lightweight game, but it might serve as kind of a scenario generator for IR2. I'm not sure. I'll have to look at it and think if that's possible. But at least it covers the right time period, which unfortunately, Republic of Rome, you know, very shortly, we get the triumvirates, we get, you know, we get to Octavian, maybe a third of the way through the game. So a third of the game could be the late deck, although Marius and Sulla's early deck, or middle deck. But anyway, let's not be too random here, right? Well, we don't have all that much to talk about. This is, in some ways, a similar scenario to the last one. In some ways, they're all similar. There's definitely this slow progression as technology and Roman society and everything changes. So you see, you know, the heavy cav come in with the Goths and stuff like that. But in this one, you have a somewhat more powerful, well, I don't know about that. You have two sections to the empire. You have the senatorials, who basically control the blue and green pieces, all right, stretching from Achaea and Epirus. Oh, actually, you've got them even in Asia already, all the way over to Spain. The other Roman faction is Sertorius, who's revolting along with the Spaniards, and he's got these purples and the brown, which you see are civilized non-Romans. And, well, there's Brutus. He's part of that, too. Now, Brutus is caught off on his own facing Pompeii here. And who's this here? Crassus. Over in Rome. No special rules for Crassus's money in this. Yeah, a lot of things that you wish you kind of had from the other games. And that's part of why I like the idea of running this as something that's generated out of one of the other games as a campaign. Okay. And then, of course, you have Mithridates again. No 4-player option in this. Mithridates, he's lost territory. Sulla beat his butt in. Now Bithynia and Pontus are becoming pro-Roman. So his forces are further back. He's kind of got a free reign early in the game, though, because I think, like I thought in the other one, here the senatorials really want to try to use their wealth, and you can see that Sertorius has a tax base of 1. The senatorials have a tax base of 74. Mithridates has a 14, but he's using replacement points too. So, but he can't buy much. He doesn't have a lot of purchasing power. However, he can improve that. What else does this have? We've got our pirates and Rhodes back in the game. Mithridates controls the pirates. They're red now. Rhodes is yellow, which can cause some possible problems because Spartacus, who comes in as an anti-Roman faction, is also yellow. That's life, right? I mean, I could easily pick some other color instead of Rhodes. So if I feel like I'm getting confused, I could grab something else. I don't know. Actually, I don't know if I have. See, orange and black, those are committed to certain other powers too. So it's kind of one of the problems. And if players kind of go off the rails and don't follow the scenario and like go invading barbarian territories, you're going to have all kind of weird counter mixes in this. You're going to push the game beyond, you know, the limits of what the counter mix can handle, which could be a problem if there's because there's light infantry constraints on the colors. Okay. Yeah. Sertorius uses the mobilization rules of 7 which is Roman, for his purple, and he uses the accrual ratings for the brown ones. Now, there's something weird here. The scenario errata for this, there's a bunch of errata for this scenario, say that Sertorius does not control Lusitania. Oh, okay, that's fine. But he controls Galatia. All right. Lusitania is down here. He would need this, which is very definitely not his. Okay. This is a civil war, so if either of the Roman factions collapses, the other one absorbs it. You can collapse by loss of leaders, but both sides have a lot of leaders in the succession for Imperator. All their minor leaders count for some reason in this one. And that's listed across the line here. Anything? Okay. Mithridates has some special rules too, of course. He recruits by civilized recruitment, the special rule for that. Now, he can also recruit from Macedonia, Asia, and Lycia and Pamphylia if he conquers them. Asia and Lycia and Pamphylia, which he doesn't own, and I believe the senatorials don't own it either. So you would have to invade another country to get that. Which might not be worth it. I don't know if I have a tax base for it. Let's see. We have Syria, Armenia, Egypt. We'd have to figure out what the tax base should be for that. That may be possible to determine, but it also may not. Maybe it just doesn't have a tax base, but it allows him to recruit there. I don't know. Anyway, if he recruits in either Asia or Lycia and Pamphylia, he has to pay 50% more. That's not the case in Macedonia for some magical reason. Don't ask me why. Maybe it's in the errata and I didn't see it. Maybe it should be in the errata. Nope. Oh, Sertorius controls 1128 west. That's one I didn't see. Okay, so we'll give him a little purple control marker there. just because that's kind of an up in the air area. Rome's worth 8 again. We have pirates, so grain riots are a problem. And that may be the most annoying thing for the senatorials. And the pirates may support Sertorius and not interfere with his grain. Or maybe Mithridates' best choice is to let Rome keep switching hands and just degrade both of them. Hard to tell. All right. If Mithridates dissolves, the normal rules for dissolution of a non-Roman faction happen, which is he becomes a neutral country and probably isn't too much of a problem anymore and withdraws back into his borders and all that. But in addition, all provinces controlled by Mithridates other than Chersonesus, Colchis, Olbia, and Tyrus become neutral. Colchis was in that list, right? Yeah. So he basically falls back here, or he basically falls back there, and this area becomes easily conquerable by the Romans in that they can pick off one at a time. Armenia, well, let's go through these. Egypt is a Roman client state, and I bet you they can buy gold, yeah, or buy corn, 4 talents for a month, as long as Alexandria has not been captured or interfered with by the pirates, which... Armenia, this is going to be a client state of Mithridates up here. That activates if Cappadocia or Colchis is entered by the Romans. And it's a client of Mithridates, so I'm not sure if they do that if Mithridates is gone already. I guess they would. They have their own special rule. Spartacus. Numidia is a senatorial client. Spartacus, this is an interesting one. So Spartacus is going to be a Mithridates-controlled power, but he doesn't start the game in on the board. What's going to happen is each January, you roll a die. If the senatorials don't contain everything they need for victory. Well, if they contain everything they need for victory in this scenario, they win. So, I don't know if you really need that. I think. No, they need more than that. Okay. They need to kill the rebellion as well. Okay. So, if Spartacus dies, his power dissolves. His replacement rate is going to be based on his morale. He recruits by Section 8, which means he accrues points, but he may raise more units from the yellow mix. Well, since he doesn't have any, that's an issue. And at the beginning of January, yeah, this is the check for him. With some die roll modifiers as time goes on, he becomes more likely to come in. If senatorial morale is weak, he's more likely to come in, but if it's high, he will probably not evolve. He starts off with some reasonable troops at CERA, which is awesome. And if he occupies cities in Italy, he gets bonus replacement points equal to that city's defense strength once. And we mark that down with plunder markers, supposedly. I don't know if that makes me happy. The year after he activates, he gets an extra leader. Well, every year after he activates, he gets his... The first 2 years after he activates. How about that? Syria's non-Roman neutral, completely neutral. I don't know why it's in there except to give you very specific troops so you don't roll on the table. And Thrace is a civilized non-Roman client state of the senatorials. It would get random troops if somebody invaded it. But the biggie is that the Romans can march into it. And probably Mithridates cannot. Not a whole lot of boats in this one again, other than the pirates, which means they're going to be a problem. Of course, this is probably... No, I think Pompey beats... I thought he beats the pirates in the next one. I thought that was his big fighting the pirates. Maybe not. I don't seem to see him. So this is probably the one where he finally beats the pirates and destroys them. Okay. What about special rules? We've got civilized recruitment, of course, civil war, pirates and roads, and special leader roles. Which special leader roles do we have? Well, we have Pompey, who's got his own special rules. But there may be others here. First of all leaders can walk on water, kind of slowly. Pompey gets a +1 in naval combat and also a bonus on attrition. And he is not the son of Neptune, so he does not get the bonus there. Okay. What about victory conditions? Like I said, there's an automatic victory condition here. If you meet your victory conditions, the game's over at that point. For Sertorius, it's to gain Baetica, Galicia, Lusitania, and Tarraconensis, basically all of Hispania, or to win the revolt and have the sole imperator, i.e. dissolve the senatorials. He doesn't care what happens with Mithridates one bit. For the senatorials, they want the sole imperator and control of all areas that they hold at the start of the game, plus Cilicia, Crete, Galatia, Lusitania, and Lycia and Pamphylia. So Galatia and Lusitania are the rest here. Lycia and Pamphylia is here. Nobody owns it. So the Romans are going to have to attack that. And Cilicia and Crete. Cilicia? Yeah, Cilicia and Crete. Both of which are not, again, pirate territories. So basically they've got to beat up those other forces. Now if nobody wins by the end of the game, it's considered a draw. It might be possible that the senatorials beat everybody else up, and then we'll see if there's a danger of them not being able to make it in time. Mithridates has to hold everything he starts in play, plus Achaea and Epirus, Asia, Bithynia, and Pontus. Not Macedonia. Okay, I don't know. And there's not a whole lot of time to do all this. So I could see, basically what I see it as is the senatorials are the stronger power, but militarily they may be outnumbered here in Spain to begin with. They have to focus on Spain. They really do. Because if they let this grow, they're going to get wiped out and game's over in favor of Sertorius. So that has to be their focus, which means they have to allow Mithridates a fair amount of leeway. Once they beat the Spaniards, assuming that they do, if they don't, it's probably game over in Spain's favor. Once they beat the Spaniards, then they can turn their efforts. What do they have to do about the pirates? That's a good question. You know, they probably have to do what they can to defeat them. At the beginning of play, they don't have many boats. He's got one fleet there. I think that's it. I think they have one fleet. And since they're a different power from Rhodes, they can't combine with Rhodes. Not that they particularly need to. But, yeah, that's... they're going to have to build up their navy. Oh, wait, no. Oh, no, that's Red. That's not them. Yeah. Red was Roman last time, right? All right. I don't know when we're going to start because I have a stupid training tomorrow that starts over on East Coast time. So I'm getting up at like 6 in the morning. And it's already not all that early right here now. But on the other hand, that training, I might decide, is not as worthwhile as I think it should be. And maybe I'll try to squeeze a little bit in during lunch or something. I am having a hard time getting this started. It's been a couple of days now. Just sitting here. And part of it is opening up with an economic phase. It means I gotta roll random events. I gotta, And it's a little more complicated than the last one because I got to deal with the fact that 2 people are recruiting from Hispania. And then, of course, I got to deal with the fact that I got to play this lousy fucking game. You know, I mean, that blush of excitement that I vaguely remembered, which, you know, maybe the first 20 or so times I played it, was there with this thought that maybe there's something here, maybe it'll work. The stubbornness, of course, has continued to get me through previously, but for whatever reason, it hasn't here. And a lot of it is, I would bring this, you know, to the non-wargamers to play, and they would kind of get into it because in a lot of ways, you know, I mean, the dullness of it isn't that much different from the dullness of an Ameritrash game, right? It just seems more complex and dull. But it's lacking that good historical linkage. And, you know, you could play a kind of Risk-like game, and it's like, whatever. I mean, there's good Ameritrash too, but the really bad stuff is kind of Risk-like, the Axis and Allies and stuff like that, where there's... Anyway, whatever. But I just keep facing this and looking at it and I'm like, I don't want to cope. And I know tomorrow I'm going dancing and whatever. Well, we rolled random events. Sertorius didn't get any. Mithridatic got 50% more taxation, so he got 21 bucks, I guess, instead of his 49. And the senatorials got a death of a leader play. It was a false alarm, but they still lose 2 morale off that. 5 out of 6, it's a false alarm. And it's the other leader. It's not the Imperator or Rex death marker. So, now we move this here. And we calculate the taxation. Here's where it starts to get tricky. So, for example, I'm used to, like, you know, just running one country, but at a time when I'm running the economic phases, and say EU or just about any game after the Holocaust, which it's actually visible. Sertorius and the senatorials have to compete on the number of units available from Hispania. Okay, normally in this game, you're able to build almost everything you can. So you're able to build up the entirety of whatever you've got here. But in this particular scenario, Sertorius doesn't have much money. He's got 5 big bucks, which means if we look in Hispania, well, 3 bucks will get me one of these. 2 more bucks will get me 2 infantry. So I think that's, I'm going to bid on, or I'm going to demand a 16, 10, and 2 412s, because if I go for anything else, well, if I don't go for those, then the senatorials can take the ball. The senatorials probably want to take everything that they can build in Hispania. They get split evenly between the players who have build capacity in the area, though. So at least I'm depriving the senatorials of the things that I can actually buy, and I'm getting the cheapest things, manpower, in terms of combat strength for the money. So that's probably, that's how we're going to do it. And I think I have to have the money to cover whatever I'm saying I'm going to build. All right, okay, life is not terribly easy. First of all, I do have a leader in Galicia, I believe, under here, so I was able to build some troops there. And Sertorius also built up in the cities that he has. He has some guys just out and loose, which is weird. Maybe I'm mistaken, but Mithridates, fairly easy. Can only build 6 stacking points of units. He's severely limited here. He is going to lose a war of attrition if it comes to him versus Rome. His hope, though, is to be able to take advantage of the Civil War and gain enough territory and not lose his army. That's about all he has going for him. this is not going to be an easy scenario for him. Like the other one was easy. Remember, the games tend to be fast, but they don't tend to be so fast that production takes no effect at all. There's enough of Rome here that unless grain riots are what basically end the game, there's probably time for the Roman Empire to outlast Mithridates' weak production, which is, yeah, it's this replacement rate of 6, which is just garbage with all his money. And that's because 71 bucks of income, that's including the piracy hits that we've taken, spent it all, 3 of it on navies. Now I took those navies and I split them up because something I'm afraid of is the pirates can come in, land, and capture one of the cities that I'm building fleets in and burn the fleet down, which would kind of go against what I need done. So I built 3 legionary units, or heavy infantry units, in cities that I'm building the fleets in, just to make it much, much more difficult. Because they can't combine an attack. They can only attack one little pirate group at a time. They're not allowed to stack their forces at all. Other than that, though, basically we built everything we could. We filled out the chart. The only thing we didn't do, we could have built 1 more navy, but it would have meant giving up one of them 2010 units that we're building. And I think, although the pirates are a big problem, I feel like I need to build the armies to protect to protect my naval builds, and also go on. I can't really build anywhere else. I can build in Spain, I can build in Italy, and I can build in Gaul. And that's it. Everything else, Baleares. And that means there are archers available in this scenario because Baleares is active. So theoretically, Sertorius could also build them if he captures it. But yeah, I think it's Crete and Rhodes also have archer units. But they're very, very rare units at this point in the game. Later in the game, all Roman units are considered archers. That's kind of scary. I think I've done enough by doing the economic phase in this. It's not a huge thing, but you know, my way to get started is to take little steps. And what's held me off on this, among other things, there's all kind of shit. You know, I'm just such an avoidant person, and I went and found something horrible to do to avoid all my problems because I'm terrified of all of them. And this is one of them. This no longer became an avoidance thing. The neat thing about this is I may dislike it enough to get some of the things that are productive done, but so far that hasn't happened. Anyway, we'll head into the diplomacy where we have to cope with the grain issue. Senatorials have enough money to buy grain from Egypt, but if I counted correctly, I believe I can cancel all 4 of those. 2, 4, 6, 8, 9, 13, 14. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, so I'm going to be able, I think, because this guy's going to be able to play too. So I think I can cancel 4 grain out of Egypt, which makes that not worth buying. Here it's trickier. I think the Baetica grain's going to make it. And there's no grain there, is there? I can probably cancel out the 2 Sicilian grain and the 2 Africa Proconsularis grain. But that means basically I'm going to be trying to run Rome on one of the, 5 required grain to operate. So we open up with a quarter rebellion. However, and I may have made this mistake last time, I don't remember. Basically because Sulla was kind of mixed in Italy, so I think it was the case. I think I did it correctly. But here the closest force to cause the rebellion is the pirates themselves. And I think the situation was different in the last game, but I think some of the rebellions maybe the pirates would have been close for, because I had someone parked here in Sardinia for most of the game, and it might be a reason to get out of there. that ends up being a 31-point swing in morale, not for the pirates who don't use morale, but for the senatorial faction, and they're down to a 49 morale. Because of loss of Italy, loss of the imperial capital points, and the 10-point swing for a corn rebellion penalty. The nice side of it is neither of the Roman factions has to worry about a corn rebellion ever again unless and until I'm ready to take Rome back. I can let it sit there as a pirate-controlled town. It's kind of weird because the pirates shouldn't even have these pieces, but I can't find anything that excludes them from getting them. So that's where we are. Analyzing Sertorius' initial setup, I see one place to attack, which is down here at Emerita Augusta. First of all, it'll give me control of Lusitania, so it's worth a fair amount of morale. Which are pretty important because I'm pretty close to the senatorials are pretty close to collapsing. I mean, they're only a 50, right? 50 points is not an impossible task to drop someone because of that. They were at 80. The other thing is, I'm in supply from here. All these other places I might attack, I wouldn't be in supply. The only advantage possible to them is maybe the senatorial forces are already out of supply somewhere, but I doubt it. This guy's got a supply wagon. He wouldn't be able to supply himself. It's a big pile of troops. It can't retreat because I've got twice as much cav. It will end up probably being a siege in that case. I've got better leadership, and even with the siege, I think I can get it to 3-2 odds. It's going to take every damn unit that I have, basically. I'll keep somebody to keep that maximum level fort open, I guess. But that will turn things around here. Now, Brutus is not in a great position. I might try to withdraw him from there entirely and maybe try to take some other city. The danger there is if there's a leader around, he might get intercepted, but I think he can slip around the back way. Since I control this, no. So I'm going to have to take something for this to be successful, but basically, I don't want to face this force, which I think is larger than me. I'll analyze that to make sure, but basically my turn is going to be to conglomerate everything and make the attack here. About 10 minutes to figure out an attack like that. Mostly the game isn't that big a deal. Usually you're like, oh, big force on the coast. I have big force on the coast. Is mine bigger? Yeah, I slam it into him and see, you know, if I can gain something. This is one case where I definitely would retreat because the 5 morale loss for a retreat is better than whatever else I might lose. 2. Although I would be in supply, so I would be able to bring the senatorial forces and conglomerate them there as well, getting supply out of Baetica. Arius made a mistake though. He collected all his forces here except for this unit and started moving it, and now it's within an interception range. I need a 6 to intercept it, but that could be the game actually, that one die roll. Because otherwise, yeah, we have the 3-2 and no retreat. A fair amount of points there. Now, if I had moved this force first and these intercepted, I could wipe out this other large senatorial force and just say, screw it. A 6 does not occur, so we get the result we wanted and get through. Important enough of a battle, I think, for both factions, that we're both going to go on the Daily Appeals table, which, you know, could of course end the game right there. It's a 1 in 6 chance of losing your Imperator. Big risk? Yeah, well, the senatorials don't feel like they have a chance unless they win this battle, and Sertorius is like, well, if you're rolling on it, I gotta go too. So I'm going to use the red die for Sertorius. We're both on the polytheistic. On a 1, Either side dies. They're just destroyed, basically. Well, they have additional Imperators. Neither side gets a 1. The Senatorials are going to get a die roll against them by 1. And Sertorius gets an extra die roll. So we're going to be on the 3-2 siege chart, which is the normal land combat chart, right? Nothing special for siege except the multiplier. Both sides check attrition. Shit, these guys, yeah, they're still okay from there. Okay. Even though they're in a city? I don't know. Hold on, I may not be able to go in that city safely. So I had a supply wagon. I'm going to expend a point of that. That covers, I've got enough stacking points to fit under that. And yeah, it's going to be 3-2, and I'm at like +3, because there's a leadership mod of 1. Wait, there's a leadership mod of 1. That's +1. There's 2 mods from the deity table. That brings me up to +3, but I'm forgetting something else. I have 112 to 49. Which means I have a 63-point bonus. I screwed up and took those points off Mithridatic. Just gotta fix that. Okay, so the numbers change. It's 112 minus 57 morale, which gives us 55. I only need to spend $6 to drop that. The Senatorials will do that. Sertorius doesn't have any money left. So it's not pleasant, but it's a +3 modifier on the 3-2. And that's all I get. Is there a modifier limitation? I don't think so. Combat efficiency, they're all A's. Okay. Well, that's it. Senatorial force is wiped out. And we'll calculate the losses and see if we have 1 Roman faction at the end of it. It wasn't quite that bad. It was, what, 24-point swing. So now they're down to 33 for the Senatorials. But you know, another major loss anywhere. Losses down here, whatever. The Senatorial faction could fall apart. Now this puts Mithridates in a weird position where, like, he wants to make sure that he keeps the Senatorial faction somewhat alive, which might be difficult because facing a unified Rome is just impossible. But yeah, and I gotta add the tax base for Lusitania. I added it already to the morale. Ooh! No, I did not add it to the morale. I just did the battle morale. So yeah, and just, you know, try to plod on. But this is the kind of situation that this game gets you in, where it's like, oh look, I spent, you know, an hour setting it up. It takes a while to figure out the scenario, to sort and unsort pieces and everything between games, instead of just throwing them in a baggie afterwards and saying, all right, we'll see about this in a few more years. Maybe it got better. You know, it takes 10 minutes to figure out a move. And by the way, Brutus, I didn't move him, and I was like, oh, let me get him out of here. He didn't have an easy way out. The mountains here prevent him from getting an escape, so he's pretty much screwed. I could run him away by water alone, I guess, but he's got nowhere to hide. Anyway, you know, you spend 10 minutes figuring out your move. You spend 10 more minutes recalculating it to make sure it's correct. You roll a couple of dice, and wow, the whole game just changed, you know. And especially since it's kind of set up this way, there's no way. I saw no other answer that worked. You know, there's a possibility of an interception here, but for the most part, this is the scenario set up, unless the dice go badly, and then the scenario set up is this force is badly damaged. Now, I got very lucky in the sense that my entire Sertorius force is still alive, and that means I'm going to be able to probably win this. What are my victory conditions? Because these are auto victory. on this scenario, unlike the last one. Yeah, that looks pretty hard that looks pretty hard to stop. I just have to take all of Hispania and it's over, which means the senatorials have to commit almost all of their effort towards trying to prevent that from happening and hope that Mithridates lets them, is able to maintain their existence, yet still gain what he needs from it. Mithridates has a little harder time finding supplies. Sort of like over there, there's no roads anywhere except in Asia. We move in, we capture Nicomedia. I've got to give some points for these. And we take the port here, which is important because Nicomedia is not actually a port. That gives us supplies at least a little bit of the way down. These forces are all within the stacking limitations for the hexes they're in. Can't bring my wagons, they're too slow. They're trying to crawl forward. The Romans could probably go capture them, but who cares? I mean, if they destroy them, they're shit we can't use anyway if we can't get it moved. Forces in the north moving forward. This was C units from Vasius and Heraclea. And like I said, I got a couple of morale points to shift away from the senatorials and into Mithridates here. The senatorials just lost Bithynian Pontus, which is, I think, worth 1 or 2 points. But they also lost the city, which is worth a couple points too. And we finish up that June turn with the senatorials. Launched an attack here on Brutus, took him out. That got our morale up to 43. Taking the senatorials down, or the Sertorius faction down a little bit. That's had to happen. Pulled back as much as we can. We can't lose Tarquinius, so we got to be careful because this is the capital. And if we lose half the cities in the capital and we lose Baetica, it's game over, right? The Sertorian faction wins. We're shifting everything out of Italy that we can, although we're keeping those heavy infantry in place to guard the boats, just so the pirates can't come in and raid where I'm building boats. And I'm hoping that we can have, either an apocalyptic showdown along the coast that looks good to us, or fight some kind of delaying action in Spain so we can keep building troops. The delaying action is dangerous because our morale is dangerously low at 43 or whatever. We're losing a couple of points in terms of morale there. I think I did my die roll the wrong way. So I should have actually been at -1 instead, which means I would have taken some losses and gotten less than I had. So I have to lose 10 strength points, which would amount to 3 of these. Some of them upgraded, but that's okay. And that means also there's a 3-point less morale swing, so I'm only at 40. Right, so here in July, the Sertorius faction grabs all of Baetica. I forgot to give them the points for that. That's good for me. 5 more. They got 9 points for the attacks here and here, all of which were successful. That has to be the case, but they lost 1 unit, so they only got 9 morale for that. They'll get 5 more. Their own morale is not really a big deal. What the big deal is Sertorius. The senatorials are dropping down. They'll be at 26 before their turn starts, which means they've got to attack things for one thing, but which may be difficult for them. But also they got a real position that's not particularly pleasant in terms of morale loss. They're going to be taking a 1-point morale hit probably in any kind of grand battle that happens down here. There was no chance of grain riots because the pirates hold Rome instead of And I'm not using control markers everywhere. I kind of can remember that these things are senatorial held. And we're real close to this falling. This is Sertorius, though, and he doesn't have, it's 4 movement points, I think. He doesn't have a supply line to Carthago Nova, which means he's going to have to rely on his supply wagon to get him there. Speaking of this, I may need to move this. 1, 2, 3. I can't get it there. But I think swinging one wagon out here is probably worth doing. If it ends up splitting up the senatorial forces, it may give me some opportunities that I wouldn't get otherwise. But as of right now, I think the senatorials are going to have to try to get there and make that their stand. But it's Mithridates first, and of course the pirates. And the pirates probably want to do what they can to start harassing Sertorius, but that's not easy. Ideally, the Mithridates turn would involve grabbing as much as I could, which would have been quite a bit. I probably could have taken all of these, for example, maybe this as well. All of Asia would fall then. That's a lot of points. As it is, I took 6 points with 3 towns, including Philippa, which I want a foothold there. If the senatorials can't... The other option, of course, is that Mithridates tries to win before Sertorius, but I don't think that's possible. So I'm trying to instead, mainly because the losses involved in that kind of victory would drive the senatorial faction away. So, yeah, I'm not taking as much as I possibly can in the hopes of trying to keep the senatorials alive long enough that they can win a battle here. This is not really exposed, although a force march could reach there, and it is in supply, so it's possible I could lose some Mithridatic forces, which I can't really afford to, so that may be a mistake. That may also offer the senatorials a way to keep themselves alive, but at the cost of slitting my own wrists. And that's really what gets me about this scenario. So the way this scenario probably should have been played by Mithridates, like the last one, my expectations of how the players had to play it in order to actually win was mistaken. In the last one, Marius and Sulla probably had to work together to defeat Mithridates rather than at all focus on that civil war. In this one, Mithridates probably shouldn't be using the pirates against the senatorials at all. He should be withholding the pirates until the senatorials seem to be established enough, because I've driven their morale down to 20 now, and a significant amount of that, you know, losing Italy's 13, Rome brings it to 21, 20, and the revolt itself is worth 10. So that was 31 points. The senatorials would be a lot better off at 50 than they are at 20, and I could afford to take some of their stuff. Now I can't afford to take it because I made that mistake. Now I could give them Rome back and kind of cut a deal with them, but I don't know. I just really don't know what to do about it. And I mean, it's kind of goofy. It's like the scenario sets you up with certain expectations. I'm Mithridates. I should be trying to beat up the guy I'm facing. Well, in this case, apparently not. And that's kind of the weird thing, you know. You almost have to play the scenario or else play it out in your head completely to figure out, and that's as much effort because it's all the calculations that's the hard part, to figure out what do I need to do to have a chance of winning this scenario as Mithridates, for example, because Sertorius is going to be too close to winning. Well, that's not apparently, that's not immediately obvious to the player that Mithridates should be supporting Rome, right? And this is actually probably a kind of interesting scenario if you have that foreknowledge. That foreknowledge isn't given to you in the scenario book. The other one at least gave a hint if you read the historical, that at times Marius was supporting Sulla. This one, there's absolutely no reason to say that Mithridates would be helping Rome in any sense. Pushing into August, the senatorial's actions. Pompey and Crassus have moved their way down here. We grabbed a supply wagon, laid siege to Toledo, tried to get an attack, it didn't succeed. We didn't lose anything. Got to season some heavy infantry too, which is kind of cool. We also did the forced march here, no chance of a failure on that, or a loss, and laid siege there. Pulled the unit out of Ephesius. We were actually able to kind of skirt around because the boats are back here, I think. Yeah, so we kind of escaped. Another siege laid. This one we didn't try to roll on. It was a 1-to-1 attack with a net of -1. That's not good. And then Rhodes went and picked off another pirate, but they got something that cost them a ship, and therefore their force is destroyed because it was a naval battle. Everybody on board dies. So it ends up pretty even, and that's going to be a problem because now Rhodes has to wait until they accumulate enough replacement points, which is what they get 1 per turn. It takes 4 to build a boat, and I dumped this guy off so I wouldn't lose him. Yeah, it was foolish for me to bring him to begin with because I get 2-to-1 attacks against these pirates. But yeah, it's going to take me 4 production cycles, each one of which I'm going to lose 5 morale points. So 4 times 3 is 12, times 5 means I'm going to lose 60 of that 114 or so morale. That morale, the only thing it does for me is keep Rhodes in the game. Rhodes will leave when they can't attack enough. I mean, they're kind of... Here's the thing, they can get 2-to-1 attacks. They're at +1 on them. But if they get anything, any result, they basically lose their fleet. So, you know, and they have to get very lucky to be able to wipe out more than like a pirate. So they're really not terribly effective, but at least they start trimming the pirates down a little bit. Give Rome a little bit of time to try to build up. And we'll see. We'll see if this can be over. It's going to be tough because Sertorius, neither side can kind of play in here with full force. So neither side can bring their strength to bear. And that means stacking limits are what applies, so leadership is the only thing that really matters. Leadership, morale, stuff like that. Well, Sertorius has the advantage there. Along the coast, it's the other side of things, but this little span here requires a supply wagon to be able to make that jump. And that means there's some time before the 2 Roman factions are going to be forced to fight at full strength. And that's kind of the thing. It's like, yeah, with the supply wagon, you can bring a bigger force into play somewhere, but then you're eating the supplies and it starts delaying things and making life a little bit harder. So that's where the game kind of gets interesting, is where you have to actually split up those big stacks or arrange for the supply wagon, which is slow as hell, to make, you know, to be able to make your attacks. And otherwise, the game's pretty much march down the coast and slam your big army into the other guy's big army, and do it fairly quickly because unless you can arrange attacks somewhere else, like in the hinterlands or whatever, you're losing 5 morale a turn for failing to attack. And that's the other thing, retreating before combat. I mean, if you've got like half your army and the other guy's got his whole army and you're allowed to retreat, you want to do it. 5 morale points is worth that cost. But if you're talking about a couple little people here, if those units retreat, your army still loses 5 morale points. That's huge, you know? So it's like little forces never retreat. It's just cheaper to lose them usually. You know, like a couple infantry, a couple of light infantry units or whatever. Yeah, just take the 2-point hit and I mean, it's still 4 points because it's the battle plus the hit. But if it's a siege or something like here, you might get to survive a turn, and then, you know, those units are still available, which is the same as you get if you retreat, and you lose a little bit less morale. But yeah, like a single unit caught out in the open, let it die, you know. Sartorius has a way forward. This would be difficult, but could be done. But through here, it's not going to keep me in supply, but I was able to get my 2 supply wagons there. I'm in supply from Vedica. I'm taking the morale hit, though, for not attacking this turn. Basically, an attack here, an attack here. Either of those could cause a possible interception. And I can't bring my full force into play. So instead, I'm using lesser amounts of force. The one iffy thing, this is not mine. Yeah. I could grab that other supply wagon that the senatorials picked up, but there's too much of a chance of an interception happening. It's not guaranteed, but it's pretty close. So we're taking our hit there because we can't get enough force. I mean, we technically would have superiority if Sertorius went up there with a big force. I don't know, maybe it's worth it. Because he's in the wild. Let's see, maybe we want to do this. He's in the wild clear, which means I could get 16 stacking points. That may be enough to be worth it. That's what we're doing, and the interception isn't a good one. If I succeed, I'm attacking a 4 to 5. Probably will lose. I don't want to make that interception. The only way to make it work is maybe if I can, you know, get a good religious die roll or something. So I'm not going in. And then Sertorius is then attacking at basically infinite to 1. The unit can't retreat. And we succeed. So we're going to get 4 points and grab that extra wagon. This works, and the reason everything works is all the supply line. You know, 2, 3. 2. I screwed up. I think Pompey can hit Sertorius there. Well, miscounted. And that's how this game works when you get down here. This was not a good attack. I knew I could hit here. This is 2, 3, 4, yeah. And I don't think I have to stop while I've got units under siege. I'll have to look up some rolls to see if that's the case, but I think Sertorius just lost the game. Yeah, quite possibly. He's got a cav. I don't know how much cav Pompey has. Pompey's only got 1. We got another one there, so if we can divert both of them into there, we can prevent a withdrawal before combat and maybe beat him. If we can bring these guys in, it's just pretty much over. Well, while we're waiting on that, the pirates go and siege Rhodes. Because I left the troop behind, it's not easy to attack now. And Mithridates grabbed Asia, which throws the senatorials down to 6 morale. So if anything goes wrong, we're screwed. But and that may not be particularly good for Mithridates, but he's shipped some more troops in here, and will continue to be shipping forces in there to try to throw back the senatorial forces. So whoever comes out of this in the lead is going to have something of a fight on their hands. Mithridates' replacement rate is so low, though, that unless this is an incredibly bloody fight in Spain, or keeps lasting, if it's protracted, that might be a problem, too. And it could be. The loss of Sertorius, remember, doesn't kill the faction. There's tons of replacement leaders there. So that all are in the succession, unlike most of the scenarios. But it does look to me like Crassus can make it there, I think. I counted him, but maybe made the counting wrong. I hate counting, and this game is all about it. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Almost anything can get there for 9. The only question comes down to, can we trace supply through here if that's under siege? And can we move through that if that's under siege? Those are the two things that put Sertorius at risk. And I think the answer to all of them is yes, but whatever. Doesn't matter a whole hell of a lot here. I've got Crassus coming in. I can try to intercept Crassus. Now, if I bring the supply wagons along, that's really hard. But if I don't, it's very easy, actually. It's 1.5 movement points. I've got a +1. I think anything but a 1 will succeed. And therefore, I will be bringing the full battle, and then Pompey, etc. will come in, and we'll have one single grand battle there. Yeah, that gives me a 3. That's more than 1.5. Is that guaranteed? Yeah, actually, I was guaranteed 2. So now the whole force is back in play. Minus these supply wagons, which I had to leave behind. And now it comes down to the usual situation, which is both sides have all their force in play. Pompey can keep bringing his forces in, and you might as well bring everything, you know. Again, this is likely the game. If the loss of this battle would drive the senatorials out of the game. That much we know. Sertorius, maybe not, but maybe I have all my leaders there, and therefore I would lose anyway. And there's no other force, so if everything's destroyed, that's going to happen. All I have to do is maintain enough troops to maintain the siege. I don't remember what the requirements for that are. I'll look it up, but I think it's like, I don't think it's even equal strength. I think it's less than that. Aren't any options? Sertorius has twice as much cavalry as these guys were able to bring into view. Let's bring some more up. 2, 3, 4, 5. Some more troops in, just in case. Let me see what the requirements are here too, because I want every last strength point I have. I'm going to handle the entirety of this before I go over here and try to figure out what to do here, because I've already put some thinking effort into this. I've calculated out the size of Sertorius' force. Pompey's doesn't matter. He's in supply from here. 2, 3, 4. Barely, but he's in supply. But here, I've calculated out I have a size 73 force. I am clear. Both sides have to check supply. I am clear in wild, so I can take 16 off of that. But that means I still have 57 I have to spend. Now, I think it's 32 for each supply wagon. Damned if I know. That is unfortunately not listed on here, which should be. I think it's 32 for each supply wagon point. If I can fucking find it. There we go. Baggage trains. Yeah, 32. So I need to spend 2 points off my supply wagon. There we go. That's 1, 2, and it's gone. And now we count up the totals and do the fight, and we're probably going to see some praying going on too. I have a nice easy number. Remember, the combat chart here has not only 2 to 3s, but 5 to 4s, so sometimes it's not easy to tell what your appropriate odds chart is. But here we're at 288 to 280. Which we would immediately say that's going to be either 4 to 5 or 1 to 1, depending on who's attacking. Sertorius intercepted, so he's attacking. He's got the 288, so it's a 1 to 1 attack. What do we got going for us? We have the majority of cavalry, so that's +1 by the optional roll. We have 158 to 6. Okay, we need another calculator, right? That's 152. That's going to be +3, but I think there's a limit to this. But if I spend $3 of my treasury, That goes down to +2, and I don't have to look up the roll. So now we're at +3 total for Sertorius. Sertorius and Pompey are equal. Okay. Right now we've got a 3-point bonus for Sertorius. CERs are the same. It's time to call on the gods. There's no question that Pompey is going to call on the gods. Sertorius feels like he has to too, though. There's a 1 in 6 chance of losing the game on that. We'll let Pompey do it on his own, right? I mean, the most we get is bring it close to even. All right. So only Pompey is going to call on the gods. We get a 4. That brings this down to +2. And I think that's all the modifiers. So it's 1 to 1 at +2. That's pretty decent. And a 7 is very decent. We are going to take 1/4 of what the attacker loses. We're going to get a huge morale boost off this. I don't think I was going to attack here. But there is a siege roll there. Reduction roll. And the senator, the faction is going to dissolve. The Pompey faction is going to dissolve, the senatorial faction, because they lost at least 6 morale off this. I do have to calculate what that morale boost is, but it's going to be humongous. I think it's just from the battle. I got to look up whether I think you actually do get points for everything else you gain. So, I mean, the Sertorius faction is going to be humongous in terms of morale, and they're going to be able to really get bonuses against Mithridates, if that's the case. If they just get the points off the battle, they're still pretty potent. Plus, they've got the higher production capabilities, and this is probably going to be pretty much a mop-up operation, but we'll see, because there are still some things to threaten. There's the pirates and crap like that. It was 131 points for the battle itself, including the losses that were taken here. These guys aren't losses. These guys are fine. 35 points for the leaders we decided to execute. That brings us up to 304. And now we start allocating all of Rome to them. And like I said, I think that comes with the bonus as well. As we face the entire army here, and you know, I could have taken another leader. These leaders would have come to me for the same value, so I might as well not execute A. Right. Pompey I had to kill. I did not have to kill whoever came with him, though. Oh, I can't find. He had another real leader with him. A green guy. Oh, there he is. Oh, over here. Crassus. So I'll take them with me. Might as well keep, you know, more leaders doesn't hurt. Although it's more points I can lose, but I got 36 points in provinces. Remember, Italy's not mine anymore, stuff like that. Most of the forces were eliminated, though. The only thing that I have left is this siege, which is pretty questionable. I might be losing points for those. However, Rome is a lot healthier now. It's unified. It's got a morale of 368. And we're going into an economic phase. The only negative side of all of this is I think we built most of what we can build. The only thing we're kind of getting is we're getting those boats. All the defenses for the boats are gone, which meant they could have been knocked out and destroyed by the pirates or something. But yeah, I mean, and plus our whole army's down in Spain at this point, with no capacity to build more troops. Yeah, this is a problem. I want to look. I remember there was an overbuilding rule. Now, I don't remember if it was an optional rule or otherwise, where you can pay double to buy outside of your era, but somewhere or another there's a you can pay double to build beyond your limits. I want to see if that's in the base rule for Roman conscription. It's not the word I'm looking for, but mobilization, or if it's a scenario-specific rule that applies only to certain of the scenarios. I don't think that exists at all. I think what it is if you can't train units in the scenarios that have training, you're allowed to build them at double again the cost, which could be a quadruple cost. Anyway, we're going to send this up. We're not done with the scenario. I'll keep playing. But we're done with this video. And what is this? Great Mithridatic War. Yeah, great.